The United States Grand Prix proved to be a bit of an overtaking bonanza, didn't it? The likes of George Russell, Liam Lawson and Nico Hülkenberg all managed to outdo the expectations of the machines underneath them and their respective grid positions, proving that if you have a good setup and the confidence to take it to the competition, then points were possible from anywhere on the grid. That does bring into question, however, just how a driver can move past the bare minimum on a weekend where their car is proven to be more than capable at the sharp end, narrowly eluding those who failed to reach Q3 and even being beaten by a man that started in the pit lane. We are of course once again talking about Sergio Perez, and truth be told, we really don't want to be. We'd love nothing more than Checo to return to the form we know he can drive at, but sadly that just doesn't seem like it's going to happen. What's worse is there is now a threat that is far more tangible than any other before coming for his seat, a man who on track as well as in terms of his racing future is right behind him. Want to know why a fresh threat has been delivered to Checo's seat? It shouldn't come as a surprise, and the race is now on to claim the throne for 2025. So it's fair to say the United States Grand Prix provided ample opportunity for Sergio Perez to redeem himself. His teammate wasn't exactly running away at the front, but he was more than competitive in regards to a podium, and as we stated before, COTA proved to be the perfect circuit to do some overtaking. Now before you jump at us, yes, Checo did some overtaking, in the same way that throwing a feather at a window may do some damage, managing to overcome the men who outqualified the Red Bull driver, namely Gasly in an Alpine, Magnussen in the Haas, and Alonso in an Aston Martin cursed with new upgrades, is hardly a drive worth congratulating, seeing as all three of those men would plummet and finish outside of the points entirely. An even easier time should have been had, seeing as two of the closer cars to Red Bull in the top 4 fight were starting at the back, following Hamilton's pole qualifying and Russell's Q3 instance rendering him a pit lane starter, so 6th at the minimum should have been guaranteed for Checo. Not only that, but other than for Charles Leclerc, who managed to drive off into the distance, the race ahead of Checo was an absolute slugfest, with cars slowing each other down and giving opportunities to pounce or at the very least catch up in an attempt to capitalize on the melee ahead. Instead, Checo came home finishing 7th, a place behind what was pretty much guaranteed at the start of the race, following yet another uninspired performance. Finishing once again at the back of the top 4 pack demonstrates no improvement of any kind at a circuit Red Bull were highlighting as a real opportunity for Sergio to correct his course, or at the very least, try to. That alone would have been disappointing for the Red Bull team, but being beaten by a struggling Mercedes who started in the pit lane, as well as Checo being unable to carve through the pack early to dispose of slower cars, is absolutely perplexing. Checo didn't reach the top 6 until lap 20, when 2 cars ahead in Tsunoda and Magnussen pitted, meaning he only made 2 moves forward on his own through the entire race, one on Alonso early and one on Colapinto later in the race. What's worse for Sergio is that there is now a man in the Red Bull family who is proving to be a real threat, even after just one race, with Liam Lawson proving to the world exactly why he should have been given the RB car from the start of the season. The young Kiwi jumped in the car and, after getting to grips with qualifying in the sprint, went on to put on a veteran's drive, and don't just take our word for it, as that's exactly the word that Christian Horner used, as he had this to say about Lawson following the race. I thought he jumped in and looked like a veteran, to be honest with you. He can be happy with that drive. I thought he drove a great Grand Prix, starting 19th, finishing in the points, some great overtakes, so he should be pleased with that. And according to Lawson, he aimed to do all his talking in the places where he ultimately impressed the most, qualifying and the race, as he said this following qualifying on Saturday, laying down the gauntlet for what he would ultimately achieve on Sunday. That was the goal, to make the most of Q1 to put everything together, and that's what we did. It's obviously positive coming from yesterday into today. The grid penalty is just more frustrating because the performance of the car, the pace was really strong in Q1. Obviously, we'd only really improve from there is the idea, so there were plenty of positives going forward. We made a further step with it, we made some changes, and it's just nice when you put it all together. It feels like I completed what I'd set out to do getting into the car this weekend. Now we need to try and master the race side of it. Starting 19th and having a compromised grid position, so possibly not taking qualifying as seriously as he could have, Lawson certainly made his talent known at the earliest possible opportunity, with him claiming that the past year on the sidelines gave him all the time that he needed to improve, and he certainly looks even more comfortable in the sport than he did during his super sub stint last year. Compare this to the man who he will be aiming to replace, whether now or later, and it really was a night and day weekend, with Lawson finishing just over 10 seconds behind a car currently leading the Drivers' Championship and battling it out in the Constructors, no thanks to Perez. According to Lawson, pressure is nothing new to him, and that is the exact attitude that could bring him not only to a full-time seat in Formula 1, but possibly even take him into the big leagues. Here's what Lawson had to say following the race about his aims to deliver over the remaining 5 races of the season. I know they have expectations on me, but at the end of the day, I've got an expectation on myself as well to do a job. I want to stay in Formula 1 and have a full-time seat next year, and these races are my key to doing that. So from my side, I'm taking it weekend by weekend. This weekend was strong, we need now to focus on Mexico. I'm well aware of the expectation they have on me, but at the end of the day, it's been like that since I was 16 years old as a junior. You know that they've always put the pressure on, so realistically, it's no different. And Mexico could bitterly be the moment that makes up Red Bull's mind about the 2 drivers and where they will be next season. Failing to deliver at his home Grand Prix will nullify one of the final threads on which Checo's career hangs, as there is only so much a passionate fanbase can provide. Both Helmut Marko and Christian Horner batted away any claims of Checo retiring, however they also made it clear that Checo has to improve, or else his exit from the team and possibly even the sport will be taken out of his hands. Chastising one driver in the main team, while in the next breath praising a driver in the sister team hungry for a full-time seat, sends a pretty clear message. Lawson battered Tsunoda on Sunday, something which his predecessor failed to do for most of his tenure at RB. So Lawson had a resplendent return on a weekend where Checo failed to deliver, something a lot of us saw coming. By that I mean anyone who isn't a Checo or Ricciardo ride or die. And it's not only us that thinks that Mexico will be make or break for Sergio Perez, as even Christian Horner had to concede that the one thing that could save the Mexican driver's career is the extra 1/10 of a second that home support can provide. As he said, Ferrari, congratulations to them this weekend. They've been very strong. They've got 2 drivers that are competing at the front. McLaren likewise, their drivers, there's not a big deficit between them. So that's where we really need for the constructors to have Checo come into play. Hopefully with the support he will receive in Mexico, it will give him that boost. Obviously when you qualify out of position, you lose so much time coming through all the tail end cars in the top 10 that you've then lost contact with the rest of the race. And I mean, I don't know what Horner's talking about here. This seems like a perfectly expected qualifying position from Sergio Perez, and it's not like he exactly spent all that much time overtaking, as he was ultimately stuck. The contrast to other teams who all have 2 drivers of equal or at least close capabilities has been a painful one for Red Bull and Sergio Perez for quite some time. Because of this, every race from now on will serve as a season finale level of race for both Lawson and Checo, who are now duking it out in a fight of their own, with Mexico City being the first and arguably the most important. If the United States is anything to go by, then Sergio may well be in real trouble and the lifelines are fast running out for him.